So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yirmiyahu the prophet. Then we find the 61st chapter, where we read then the completion of the spring feast, and then the mentioning of the autumn feast, then the vengeance, and then obviously the returning of the holy cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. During this time also we understand the first recorder of the spring feast, Metetiahu, and then we understand the time of reduction from 2032. So then, also the Gentiles were included in the plan, and we understand then Daniel, the 11th chapter, it is linked then with Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. So when you read, for instance, the 38th chapter and the 5th verse, then you understand also Daniel, the 11th chapter, and then the 2nd verse, there is a portion of it related with the same layer of understanding. What this means is the prophets, they were layered. They were in distinct areas, sometimes far apart, time-wise, but then the layers, they were given the same understanding. So let's understand then the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. The 11th chapter then of Daniel relates with the kingdom of the south shalt be strong. We can expect, obviously, Africa to become very strong because of the many riches they have. But then comes the kingdom of the north. Then we find the state of the kingdom of the north being greater than the first. So then, as we analyze then Daniel mostly, we find then many of these understanding related with then these kingdoms, mostly of the north and of the south. So then we find the northern kingdom obviously then later coming with much equipment. So then if you study then the northern kingdom, what used to be then the Soviet Union, when you begin to study, for instance, the military and manufacturing, you can understand the kingdom of the north, they are on standby. If you study then, for instance, the armament, you find factories yet with CCCP, for instance, Lenin's picture, and then emblem. So the northern kingdom for quite some time is on standby. Understandably, when the time comes, obviously because of the nonsense of the West and also of Europe, then we find the Eurozone breaking. We find then North America also not doing as the way we should have. Our economy is not improving. We are not spending time refurbishing our taxation system, neither freighting. Most important, we are wallowing around. European Union, they are wallowing around. You find Germany already removing its gold deposits from US and also France. It's already an indicator. So then, obviously then, as these troubled places of the world, they try to come together with a plan of their own, then obviously they are going to come against the Asia market. Thus then at some point China is going to be very tired of the playground of the West, including also Europe, and the instability of the market, the instability of the economies. And you know what's going to take place? China then hiring the northern kingdom as their managers. Then we begin our understanding why are they going to become so greater the second time than the first. Then we find the relationship of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Obviously the northern kingdom becomes stronger. So then, if we are smart and we begin our quest then understanding tabernacling, then the inclusion of the kingdoms of the world, then we can understand the other countries. We can understand the flow of the trades and the economy. If we rely on this Babylonian system, can be sure it's not going to work. So let's then prepare ourselves and understand the kingdom of the north. At some point they're going to become the managers. And then the world, if they want to do trade with China, it must go through the northern kingdom. Because some time ago, the shortwave radio stations of the Pacific, they were humming with information. There was a huge excitement of the trade of the Pacific. Ever since the countries went to China and they came back, barely we hear anymore those radio stations speaking of with so much excitement. This means afterwards, then the Babylonian system, they want to put a damper on the system of the Chinese. And then we find the West already encroaching in Australia. And then we try then our understanding the best as we can gather this information and understand the flow of this information. The next step we find then Mr. Halter over there going to New Zealand, try to come up with some computer spy of some sort. Because they should come together and try to understand their systems. That's baloney. What Mr. Halter wants is find a way in the system where then he wants to put U.S. soldiers over there also in New Zealand. Let's not be stupid anymore. Because the West already understands. South Pacific must have over there a trading post. So then let's understand, what is this country then lacking for a person of such importance to go over there in the South Pacific, speaking of computers? We have to be real stupid to believe these people over there trying to go to New Zealand. Don't we have equipment in space enough to have then the proper intel of the information going on around the world? No, because we have to go over there and try to come up with some sort of partnership with information. Sure. After the U.S. soldiers had landed over there in Australia, what do you think would be the next step to control the South Pacific? And then not only from there, they're going to try to go then from the South Pacific via the Pacific, and then they're going to try to go north. At some point they want to reach then Singapore and then China itself. So China is very sensitive already, because when it comes so far, and then the red flag for the Chinese would be when the U.S. military lands on New Zealand. That's the time when they should then hire the Northern Kingdom as their managers. So let's be very understanding as far as the flow of information, because precisely what's going to take place, you can understand very easily. When you begin your quest understanding tabernacling, when you understand then Yeshayahu the 61st chapter, and what it means the Babylonian system versus then the dragon system when speaking of the Gentile level, and then you understand tabernacling, the information is very clear, and you can understand Europe wallowing around, North America wallowing around. Then you find the Northern Kingdom already in charge of the BRICS. You find the BRICS banking system already linked up. You find China, Northern Kingdom, and Southern Kingdom already linked up. Invest in infrastructure. What other proof do you want? Then after the visit, roughly a month ago, then you find what the Pacific was humming with information via the shortwave. Then there was a damper. Very seldomly they are speaking of the excitement of the trade of the Pacific. In other words, direct trade. Then you find Israel at war with Gaza. Then you find countries coming together. Then you find US and Japan printing out more money festival. Then you find Australia sending a ship over there to the hot zone. What other proof do you want? And then this Holter guy going to New Zealand, because some sort of a friendship or some sort of a mutual understanding of computerized system of what kind? What he wants is go over there and mesmerize the New Zealanders. Let's send some more US soldiers over there in the Pacific. So from there, then they go north, then they invade Malaysia, and what else? Singapore? So let's understand, the Northern Kingdom, they are at standby. If you watch very precisely, then factories, the way they live their lives, as if they were during the time of their kingship of the first period. They are on standby. They are simply waiting for the time to continue what they started. So let's just study the Holy Scripture from the Israelic lineage, very simply, and then begin to acquaint ourselves with what goes on in the world. Europe is entangled. They must dismantle the Eurozone. There is no question. North America is bankrupt. If we don't start, then very instantly, the Department of Taxation and Freighting, then control the volume of freight coming to this country and taxing as such, then we are bankrupt. That's when at some point our monetary system then must give away to the Chinese system. Thus directed trade, and the means of exchange then is the yen. But then because of the vulnerability of the world's market, has to have a tough manager. And we know who those are. They are on standby for a long time. So if this Mr. Holter guy thinks that he's kind of a smart going over there in New Zealand and trying to mesmerize, because some sort of a computer information or sort of partnership of some sort of intel. Come on, you're trying to deceive what? Are we stupid and we don't understand? US soldiers in Australia, what would be then the next? And then when Australia is taken, then New Zealand, then, if they're not smart, also taken, then going to the North Pacific. Next thing you know, Malaysia, then they want soldiers over there, and more soldiers. What, they want to reach China even with soldiers, more soldiers? So speaking of the Pacific, since there is then the South Pacific, a country over there, with brains he had to think, and if New Zealand then is taken over by the mesmerization of US, then forget it, it's time for then China to hire then their manager. Now when we are speaking of the schedule of heaven, we are not speaking of the mother of Joanne, for instance. We are in the house of Mother Joanne. Come in, go out every time you want. As if we were during the time of the seat. Do whatever you want, do this, that, and the other. Come on, cover up with money. It doesn't work anymore. Every action wrong taken by those nations not understanding the flow of information from the holy instructions, they're going to be a step further from their own defeat. Started last year in December. Israel and Gaza. United States bought the war. A few days ago, what did Israel do? What did they do? They air strike Gaza again. So the Babylonian system is already showing signs of worn out. It's not going to work. And there is no couple of sticks of Israel, or stick of Ephraim, stick of Joseph, as if then the creator of the heavens and the earth would then divide Israel with the two sticks. Stupid. Don't you understand what takanot means? Takanot's changing of the instructions. Don't you understand Ibrahim have a couple of sons? First son of trade, second son tabernacling. So let's be watchful. If U.S. decides to send soldiers to New Zealand, that's the time when China should take their action. Strengthen their relationship with the Northern Kingdom. Then as the Northern Kingdom, they rebuild themselves from the former, then the other countries, they back away from it. In other words, they are no longer going further north in the Pacific. Read the instructions. It's fairly simple. Because the creators of the heaven and the earth, are they creators? No, creator. But these people from the Babylonian system, they think they are creators. Because there is a creator from the Itzaelic lineage and their own creator of the Babylonians.